No, no, I feel that it's narcissistic to film, but I've asked several people. They say like Carlos is doing security and can't be in here. Barbara a lot of times can't make it in from the welcome and stuff. And people have been asking for quite a while if I would start recording the sessions and post it. So I'm going to try. We'll see if this works out or not. I've got to set up my YouTube channel, and then I'll link it to the Facebook page as well. But I did change the foundations. But if you're not tracking, we do have a Facebook page for the class called Foundations. Talk to Maria or myself if you haven't become a part of that and would like to. We'll get you the invitation sent out or request, and then you can follow that. And I'll try to do this. We'll see how this works out. I just bought the setup and the microphone. We'll see if it works out. So the beyond your best behavior. No. Don't let it change anything, right? I love this class. I love the interaction. I love the way we do so. All right. No. So unless, yeah, because I've got a mic, lapel mic that ties into it. So I'm not sure how well it's going to pick up, but we'll see. I'll test it out when I view it, and may have to make some adjustments. Well, so pardon?
I said today is the testing day.
Yes, ma'am. So before you start, happy Veterans Day. I know it's Tuesday, but for all of those that have served and are serving, thank you for your service, and to the families as well, because it is a sacrifice for the families on top of just the members. Yes, ma'am.
Everybody who has served, raise their hand.
Yeah, anybody who is now or has served in the military, well, so over half the people in this class. So, yeah, we volunteered once before, and now we're not going to be voluntold, right? So, right. So, all right. Well, as we pick up where we dropped off last time, so continuing on burdens, and a few weeks ago we started looking at burdens that we are expected to carry, and we spent a few weeks on leadership and responsibility. We wrapped up that portion last week by looking at a couple of examples of Moses and of Paul, and the responsibilities they carried with, like Moses, had a compliant bunch of people that did everything he asked them to do with no murmuring or complaining. Right? He had a lot of issues, but we saw in both of them how both Moses and Paul put their faith and trust in God. They stayed faithful to that. But we also saw something we talked about earlier in the study is about carrying one another's burdens. It doesn't mean that we hand off responsibility of what we've been given. Moses and Paul did not. But they had people who came alongside and worked with them to help them carry that burden, to be able to be more effective in what God had given in their lives. And we've got to not be afraid of that in our own lives as we go through. The burden that we need to carry, I want to look at starting today, is being human. The simple fact of being human means you have burdens that you'll carry. It's difficulty, suffering, loss. It's all part of the human experience. It is something that we've had to deal with since we got expelled from Eden. Trials are there. They always will be. Accidents, illness, death, relational issues, financial difficulties, conflict, from minor conflict to major conflicts, many, many more. These are burdens that we as humans have to bear at different times in our lives. There's not a human who's immune to it. Everybody has to deal with it. But I think that because of that, people always say, well, whatever you're dealing with, find it in the Bible. And sometimes it seems kind of flippant. We're like, I don't have time for you, just go look it up in the Bible. But it is true. Ecclesiastes tells us there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that you are dealing with in life, somebody else has already dealt with, and somebody else will deal with it. Now, in this room, everything that we're dealing with, we may not have a one-to-one situation where my situation is exactly the same as your situation. We have similarities, but there's many things in the Bible that I think as we we find those cases, those accounts in the Bible, and we study that or similar situations, it helps us. As we look at others who suffered, they endured trials, things of that, they can provide us insight and encouragement as we go through whatever it is we're dealing with as well. Okay? Helps us carry our burdens. So I picked out a few people that I want to kind of look at. Today I want to start off with Hannah. We talked about Hannah briefly in this study in the past, but I want to go back on this particular point. Her inability to have children caused her distress and shame. And so I want to kind of look at that and go, well, I can't have kids, right? I'm a man, or I've never had a problem with that. So how does it apply? But just listen, because again, it's not always that one-to-one situation, but what can we take from that account that we can apply to our own lives? So in 1 Samuel 1:2, we'll be there in 1 Samuel chapter 1. We know that Hannah was one of two women that Elkanah was married to. She was first wife. She was the one that Elkanah loved more dearly, but she couldn't have kids. The second wife, Peninnah, could. She had children, and she probably felt the sting of not being loved as much as Hannah was, which might have fed everything that went into how she treated Hannah. But Hannah was dealing with inadequacies. She lived in a culture that valued a woman's ability to provide her husband heirs. And certainly as the first wife and not being able to do that, she felt sense of inadequacy of fulfilling that role. And even just, am I a real woman? I know that women often struggle when they have to have a hysterectomy about not feeling like they're fully woman anymore, because that ability is gone. I can only begin to imagine what Hannah might have been dealing with that. But then you have Peninnah, the sister wife, as it were, who mocks her relentlessly because of it. Just constant jab, constantly poking at that wound that Hannah has to bring her down, to demoralize her in her situation. And so in 1 Samuel, if somebody will read verses 6 through 8 and verse 10, we'll look at a glimpse of how all of this began to affect Hannah. So 1 Samuel 1, 6 through 8 and verse 10.
And her adversary also provoked her sore for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut her womb. And as he did so year by year, when he went up to the house of the Lord, so he provoked her, or she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat.
8 and 10.
And said Elkanah, her husband, to her, Hannah, why weepest thou, and why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? I am not better to thee than 10. Am I not better to thee than 10 sons? And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed unto the Lord.
Okay. Picking through those few verses, look at what the first thing it says is that all of this caused her to fret. And we think, oh, okay, fret. So I'm a little nervous. I'm a little agitated. A little, I'm concerned about what's going on. But it's more than that. What this is saying is that the jabs and provocations of Peninnah, they struck deep. They struck a core within Hannah and began to eat at her. The word comes from a term that means to thunder. In some cases, when it talks about someone causing fret, is like, I was reading one account, it says, the thunder comes before the rain. It's that thundering. It's that indicator that something is coming on strong. When you look in 1 Samuel 2:10, it talks about thunder. Speaking of God's anger, it says, the adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Out of heaven shall be thunder upon them. He goes on to talk about God's judgment. It's not a light thing. What Hannah is feeling right now is that thundering inside, probably every time she even sees Peninnah. Maybe every time she even hears the name Peninnah, it causes anxiety. It causes her to tense up. It causes frustration when you're anticipating that attack at every moment. Perhaps you've lived with that in your life, with someone in your life. Think back at how that makes you feel. You're on edge constantly. You walk on a layer of ice because you never know when you're going to get attacked. You might say something benign, something kind, and they flip on you and they attack you. How does that begin to affect your life? Not only did it cause her to fret, it caused her to weep. Now, when I say somebody's weeping, what comes to mind without looking at your notes? Okay. What do you think of when someone's weeping? How would you describe that individual?
To me, it's a crying of the soul.
Okay.
Not just of the eyes. Something
I'm going to be honest.
that-
Huh?
Whimpering.
Whimpering. Okay. And that's kind of what I think of. I have always thought of as like, it's more like maybe a few tears and you just kind of, always sad and a little thing, a little, but it's more. It's closer to what Maria is saying. Because exactly as she said, tears are associated with the eyes, but weeping is associated with the voice. In Semite culture back then, they didn't cry silently. This is talking about a loud mourning, a loud weeping. They didn't hold it in. It was, they used to hire professional mourners to go there and to wail and stuff. We still see it in a lot of Mideastern cultures. In fact, when someone dies, you see them just out. Even I think Africa has it too, right? The very letting your emotions just pour out of you, right? You're in anguish, and that's what this weeping is. Is it true?
Well, I was gonna say Filipino is the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this very emotional, like especially with the death, or I mean,
Yeah.
over.
But here in America, we're like, keep it in, shut up, bottle it up, right? And, yeah. And I'm that way, I had to go talk to the pastor when my dad died because I said, "What's wrong with me?" Because I haven't broken down and cried. I had a moment, when I was giving the eulogy, and I have moments from time to time, but it didn't break me. It didn't, and I was like, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with my emotions? But there's nothing wrong with letting it out. That's what Hannah was doing. She wept. We see her openly express the sorrow that she's feeling, as she complained, as she pleaded, right? I believe that she was pleading with Elkanah to please make it stop. She might have even pleaded with Peninnah to stop. But I think certainly she was pleading with God to give her relief as she poured out her heart. She couldn't eat. Depression drains. It saps your energy levels. It reduces your sense of joy and pleasure. And quite often, depression does affect the appetite. Some overeat, but a 2020 study showed that nearly half of those with a major depressive disorder have a reduced appetite, and nearly a third of them suffer weight loss as a result of it. So all these things are starting. It's not only having an emotional effect upon Hannah, it's having a physical impact upon her life. It says she grieved in her heart. It means it quivered, as in terror. Have you ever had a situation where you felt pain in your heart? Where you've maybe felt your heart flutter? It's an uncomfortable feeling. It's like, wow, what's going on? Am I having a heart attack? But something so strong in your life that you begin to feel that. Again, more physical impact upon her. And then verse 10, she was bitter in her soul. We don't deal with things, if we can't get relief from it, it can cause bitterness at the situation, at the individual or circumstance that is creating the anxiety and the angst within our lives. She had bitterness. It was an emotional response to a destructive and heart-crushing situation within her life. Yes, ma'am.
And we have to remember that it was Peninnah's children also heard their mother talking in derision against Hannah.
Yes.
And so Hannah was in a household with all of this noise against
Right.
her. And of course the outside community, even though her husband affirmed his love
Right.
for her, she was getting many attacks.
Yes. And, I was reading up on Matthew Henry's commentary on this as well. You don't know, Elkanah was a Levite. So he is a servant in the house of God. And he's allowing this to happen. His first mistake was being married to more than one woman. That's it. He broke the law. And then he allowed this, he's still serving, but he allowed this to continue on in his home. Even though he's serving God in his responsibility there, what was he doing about his responsibility in the home of managing that? And that also adds anxiety to Hannah's life. This wasn't something that happened for a couple of months. And as he did so year by year, previous verses talks about how Elkanah every year traveled up, right, to serve in the house. And every year he gave his wives some money. He gave a double portion to Hannah, right, to try to comfort her. And every year when they went up there, she went to the house of God to pour out her heart to God about this situation. This was a years-long situation for Hannah. It had quite an effect upon her life. It affected how she interacted with others. She complained. Now, for us, what do we care about Hannah? As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not barren. I don't have this situation. But what else might you be dealing with in life that you can apply the principles of this? Because we're going to go into a little bit more here. But maybe you feel inadequate in some way. What societal pressures are upon you that you don't feel like you're up to par with? And internally, you may not ever express it to anybody, but how are you dealing with it inside? Maybe it's within the family. Maybe it's your circle of friends or so-called friends. Sometimes that's the problem. Maybe you don't fulfill the societal norms, the social norms, some other expectations. Maybe people ridicule you or cause grief for this thing or another thing. And I will say this, as Christians, as we see the days get darker, we're not going to fit into social norms. We're not going to be adequate to what society thinks we ought to be and the way we ought to act and the way we ought to speak. Anticipate this to grow against us if you want to serve God, if you want to stand firm on your relationship with God. All these things can begin to come into our lives more and more as the days move on. The world is full of Peninnahs. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what your station in life is, you're going to deal with Peninnahs. People who vex, that provoke, people that anger us. As long as humans exist and as long as sin exists within the human race, we're going to have to deal with this.
As long as you hear all of that coming from the outside, the voice on the inside, self-doubt.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And devil will take every opportunity to amplify that voice. Troubles are going to come from within and without. Proverbs 17:25 tells us, a foolish son is a grief to his father and bitterness to her that bare him. To break that down, it's not just the boys, right? A foolish child, our children, is a grief, provokes his father and causes bitterness to the mother. When children rebel against the parents, when they rebel against the things of God, it causes pain and anguish and grief to the parents. Psalm 6 and 7 says, I'm weary with my groaning. At the night make I my bed to swim. I water my couch with my tears. Mine eye is consumed because of grief. It waxeth old because of all mine enemies. The outside pressures. David said, my bed is soaked from my crying all night long because of the anguish and everything that we're summarizing, summarize what we're seeing about Hannah. Bitterness can find a root in so many other aspects of our lives. Somebody turn to Genesis 27. Somebody else go ahead and turn to Esther chapter 4. But Genesis 27:34, what does that tell us? Huh? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah? Yeah, Genesis 27:34. What does he say?
And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father.
Or Esau flippantly said, yeah, I'm hungry, just give me some food, whatever, I'll give you my birthright. And then Jacob, with his mother's help, doubly injured his brother by going in and saying, give me that blessing, Dad, and pretended to be Esau. Just imagine the anguish in Esau's voice as he realizes what he's lost. When he goes in, he says, my father, can't you give me any blessing? Any of this, it's gone. And it's talking that bitterness that's within there. That happened because of family. What does Esther 4 verse 1 tell us?
When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry.
Okay. What was Mordecai upset about? The princes came in and they just gotten the king to sign a decree that it was open season on the Jews. Go out and destroy the Jewish people. It's an open season. Go out and murder them in the streets. Imagine that. Genocide of your people. Will that cause a bitterness and an anguish in your heart? Yeah. That's some enemies without exploitation, deprivation of the people. We see in Job and Isaiah and others. We see with Hezekiah that personal suffering and hardship takes a toll on us. Hostile or uncertain situations, being surrounded by enemies, can cause this. Crushed dreams and aspirations, discontent. So how did Hannah deal with all of this? She never lost her faith. That's how she dealt with it. Look at her back in 1 Samuel, verse 1. We read a couple of these verses, but I want to read them again. 7, 10, and then 15. What does that tell us?
And as he did so, year by year, and she went up to the house of the Lord, so she provoked her, therefore she wept and did not eat. And when she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore.
And 15.
And Hannah answered and said, No, my Lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drank neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord.
Okay. Verse 7. Notice this. This is a years-long circumstance. But every year, where do we find Hannah? Before the Lord. Consistently, she's going to the house of God. She's looking to him to petition him. She's looking to him as judge, as a mediator for her circumstance. This shows me that she was committed. She was committed to God above anything else. She trusted his will. She trusted his purpose rather than trusting in the emotions and the feelings that are within herself. just like her provocation never ended, her devotion and dedication continued over and over and over. She didn't give up on God after just a few times of bowing down and saying, well, I guess this isn't going to work out. I guess God's not going to do anything about it. She didn't give up on God after going to him a few times. She was consistent. We see that she prayed continually, trusting God to deliver her. She poured out her soul. It indicates that she had to empty herself. We've talked in the class many times that our emotions are real. God created emotion. He gave them to us. But our emotions aren't the sum of everything. They don't tell the whole story. And our emotions shouldn't drive the way we live our lives. Many times we talk, happiness is an emotion. Joy is a choice. You can be unhappy and have great joy in the Lord. You can be in the midst of turmoil, but be at peace with God and with the situation. You can have doubts about what's going to happen, but still have faith and hope in God that He's going to see you through it. You have to choose to overcome the emotions if it has a negative impact upon your relationship with God. That's what Hannah did. She had to pour herself out. I don't think it's coincidence here. She had to empty herself of grief and bitterness in order to make room for God's outpouring of peace, grace, and mercy. How often do we ask God to do something within our life? We ask for relief for something. We ask for Him to change something within our lives. And then we go, well, God's not doing anything. Well, guess what? We never let go of the thing we're asking Him to fix. Yes, ma'am.
Also with that, as you pour yourself out, I always think to myself, as I pour myself out, what's gonna fill it?
Right.
Am I gonna ask God to fill it? Because if I don't meditate on His word, if I'm not in prayer, if I'm
Right.
not going to the Father, then sure enough, as it is empty, Satan will fill it with his lies.
Absolutely. The man who had a demon left, didn't fill it with anything good, and it brought back 7 of his friends. Right?
You have to fill it with his
Absolutely. We have to do these things. We've got to let go and let God in. Hannah exemplifies the importance of bringing our burdens to God. We got to deal with them. It's being human. But what do we do with it? How do we deal with the situation? That's what makes the difference. That's what allows us to either move ahead, forge ahead through the difficulties, and allow God to make us better and stronger. Sounds like $6 million man, right? Or do we crumble under the weight, under the pressure of everything that's going on? How does it affect those around us when we don't yield to God in these things? We have to go to God. We have to leave them with Him. So what we talked about at the beginning of this study. We have these burdens and we take them before God and we set them down, and then we get ready to leave and go, oh, wait a minute. Come over here. Let me pick up my pet burden and carry it on with me. Woe is me, woe is me. Nothing's changing in my life. You got to make a choice. I think we could all use a little more Hannah in our lives, in our relationship with God. I know for a fact I can. We'll give them the time. Next one we're going to look at is Job. But we only got 3 minutes, so we're not going to go there today. So we will pick up next week with Job. Just so you know, we're going to look at Job, we're going to look at David, and we're going to look at Paul. And in dealing with various circumstances in life and how they dealt with it. Okay? And then I think we might finish this by the end of the year. But join me in prayer. I've been praying for a while now. What's next, God? I didn't expect this to take this long, but it's been a good study, at least for me. But be praying with me and for me, please, that God will show me what's next, where to go, and study on that. But questions, comments. Hopefully, the look at Hannah was a value to somebody today. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
But it didn't. Instead, she God and went to God. And so that also was a
Yep.
whether Benina
Right.
changed or not. And Benina may have been bitter because she saw how
Absolutely right. I've told you all about the Marine that attacked me relentlessly because I was a Christian. He wanted to see me fall. In my face, I'm an atheist, da 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 da, blah, blah, blah. When he was separating, he came up and told me, I'm an agnostic. You know, because and he came and confessed to me that he attacked me harder than he had attacked any other Christian because I wasn't bending. And it began to have an effect. Well, maybe there is something there. You know, that's not because of me, it's because of God. But, you know, that's so. All right. Brother Larry, can I get you to close with the word today?
First, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this lesson today. You created us in your image, but you've given us the free will to make choices, and there are consequences to those choices. Hannah couldn't understand all the time, but she never walked away from you.
That's right.
She was there. She suffered, but she would always return to you for comfort, for hope, for peace. Be with each of us, Lord, as we walk through our life. Touch us. Give us that strong hope, feeling, determination to follow you. Because we know and we have the hope that eternal life with you is what we look for. Be with us throughout the rest of this week. Touch each and every one that's here, Lord. Those with medical issues, Lord, I ask you to be with them. Give them courage. Give them hope. Give them understanding. But Lord, faith that they have in you for what you have done for us. So wonderful. Be with us now throughout the rest of this week. In Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Good seeing everybody here today.